The transport bus groaned to a stop at the training grounds of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The morning air was sharp with the smell of dew and diesel. Dozens of new recruits poured out, each carrying a duffel bag, eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. They joked, shoved one another, and tried to look tougher than they felt. Amid the noise, one figure stepped down quietly, unnoticed by most. Private Emma Collins. She was small compared to the others, her frame lean, her steps precise. No one would have guessed that she was 23. Her brown hair was tied back neatly, her uniform spotless, boots perfectly aligned. She didn't glance around or smile. She simply looked forward, breathing slowly, as if the chaos around her didn't exist. A few recruits noticed her silence. "Hey, you lost or something?" One asked with a grin, slinging his bag over his shoulder. She didn't answer, just adjusted her cap and walked toward the formation line. To them, she was just another shy recruit, the kind who'd get washed out within weeks. But Sergeant Tom Davis, watching from the side, noticed something the others didn't. Her posture was military-grade perfect, her pace measured, her eyes sharp. Recruits usually fidgeted or whispered in line. She didn't. She stood still, shoulders square, eyes locked forward. Like she'd done this before. When roll call began, her name was barely audible among the noise. "Private Collins, Emma." "Here, sir." The voice was soft, steady, and emotionless. Davis squinted at his clipboard. Something about that tone, that calmness, felt unusual. Most recruits shouted too loudly or stumbled nervously through their first answer. Hers carried neither hesitation nor fear. Later that day, when drills began, Emma kept to herself. The others formed cliques immediately, laughing, teasing, testing each other's limits. She stayed at the edge of the group, listening more than speaking. When orders came, she followed them to perfection. Not faster, not slower, exactly as required. It annoyed some of the others. "Why is she moving like a robot?" One of the girls muttered. "Maybe she thinks she's better than us," another said, rolling her eyes. They didn't understand that for Emma, perfection wasn't arrogance. It was instinct. That evening, during endurance tests, her quietness drew more attention. The recruits sprinted through the obstacle course, gasping and swearing. Emma ran last, pacing herself, eyes fixed ahead. Mud splashed across her face, but her breathing never faltered. She climbed, crawled, and rolled with deliberate control. When she finished, she wasn't first, but she wasn't exhausted either. She simply saluted and waited. Sergeant Davis watched again, puzzled. "Private Collins," he called out. "You move like you've done this before." She paused. "No, Sergeant." He narrowed his eyes. "No? Then where'd you learn discipline like that?" Emma hesitated. "At home, sir." He almost pressed further, but stopped himself. Something in her tone, that quiet weight, told him the conversation wouldn't go anywhere. That night, lights went out at 2,200 hours. The dormitory buzzed with whispered laughter and gossip. Emma sat on her bunk, back straight, cleaning her rifle with precise, practiced motions. Across the room, two recruits watched. "She's weird," one whispered. "Creepy quiet. Probably breaks under pressure." Emma heard them. She didn't react. Instead, she focused on the weapon in her hands. Her father's voice echoed faintly in her mind, calm, deep, patient. "Never treat a rifle like a tool, Em. Treat it like a friend. Respect it, and it won't betray you." She swallowed hard. The memory stung, not because of what he said, but because of how he'd looked that last day, standing on the porch in uniform, waving goodbye. That was 5 years ago. His deployment was supposed to last 6 months. He never came back. Emma enlisted 2 years later, not to prove anything, not for glory. She wanted answers. Closure. She wanted to understand what made men like her father go back into danger without hesitation. She thought if she lived it herself, maybe she'd finally understand the courage or the madness behind it. But she didn't tell anyone that. She didn't tell anyone anything. Days turned into weeks. Training got harsher. The instructors barked orders, pushing recruits to their breaking point. The louder ones complained. Emma endured. During live drills, she never missed a command. When they did tactical formations, she moved with fluid precision. One afternoon, under the blazing Carolina sun, the squad was ordered to perform a full field simulation, breaching, cover movement, and suppression fire. Emma was assigned to rear cover, a low visibility role. The loudest recruit, Private Jenkins, took point. "Stay behind me, rookie," he said, grinning cockily. As soon as the drill began, chaos erupted. Smoke, gunfire blanks, shouted commands. Jenkins rushed forward recklessly, ignoring instructions. He exposed the flank, nearly compromising the whole team. Emma's voice cut through the haze. Calm, exact. 2 o'clock. "Watch your right." Jenkins ignored her. Seconds later, the simulated enemy scored a hit. The squad froze. The instructor blew his whistle, furious. "Jenkins, you're dead because you didn't cover your sector. You just cost your team the mission." Embarrassed, Jenkins kicked the dirt. Emma said nothing. But Sergeant Davis, from his observation post, noticed her, the only recruit who'd seen the threat before it happened. That evening, while others relaxed, Davis called her into the office. "You've got good eyes," he said. "You see things others don't. Why's that?" Emma hesitated. "Observation keeps you alive, Sergeant." He leaned back in his chair. "Observation, huh? You sound like my old CO. I read his field notes, sir." Davis raised an eyebrow. "Whose?" She looked him in the eye. "Colonel John Collins." The name froze him. John Collins, the decorated Marine sniper who died during a covert operation overseas. Emma noticed the change in Davis's face and lowered her gaze. "He was my father." For a long moment, the room was silent. Then Davis spoke softly. "He was a legend, Collins. You've got big boots to fill. I'm not here to fill them, sir. I'm here to understand them." From that day, Davis watched her differently, not with suspicion, but with a kind of quiet respect. Word spread quickly through the platoon. The quiet girl wasn't just anyone. She was his daughter. Recruits who once mocked her now whispered her name like a ghost story. Some envied her. Others avoided her. But Emma didn't care. She wasn't chasing admiration. She spent her evenings studying tactics, practicing weapon maintenance, memorizing maps. Every motion was deliberate, every breath controlled. When others slept, she trained. When others laughed, she listened. One night, during night watch rotation, Davis passed by the yard and saw her alone under the floodlights, disassembling and reassembling her rifle over and over, blindfolded. He walked closer. "You don't have to prove anything," he said quietly. She didn't stop. "I'm not proving. I'm remembering." "Remembering what?" "What he taught me before he left." Her hands moved faster, clicks and clacks, echoing softly through the cold air. When she finished, she looked up at the stars, the same stars that had shone over her father's last mission. For the first time since arriving at Fort Bragg, a flicker of emotion crossed her face. Not sadness, but determination. She wasn't just a recruit anymore. She was preparing for something bigger. Something she didn't even know was coming. And though no one realized it yet, that quiet girl who spoke barely a word would soon become the soldier who would save them all. Because in silence, she had learned what others hadn't. How to see, how to wait, and how to strike when it mattered most. Morning mist rolled over the training field as the recruits lined up in formation. The air buzzed with nerves and caffeine. Boots scraped, rifles clanked, shouts echoed from every direction. Sergeant Davis barked commands like thunder, pacing in front of them with a gaze that could cut steel. Emma Collins stood motionless, eyes straight ahead, uniform crisp. Around her, the squad shifted impatiently. The quiet girl unnerved them. She never cracked jokes, never joined in their late-night banter. She was a mirror they couldn't read, and that made them uneasy. "Listen up," Davis roared. "Today you learn pain, precision, and pride. And if any of you think you're ready for war, you're wrong." He pointed to the obstacle course, stretching half a mile across the field. Barbed wire, trenches, rope climbs, and mud pits that swallowed shoes whole. "This separates soldiers from stories," he said. "Move!" The whistle blew, and chaos exploded. Recruits sprinted forward, screaming battle cries. Boots pounded against the dirt. The first few yards were easy. The rest was carnage. One tripped on barbed wire. Another lost a boot in the mud. Curses filled the air. Emma started last. She moved quietly, conserving energy, eyes tracking every motion of the recruits ahead. She saw who wasted breath, who panicked, who looked around for approval. She kept her head low, body aligned, crawling with the rhythm of a heartbeat. Jenkins, the loud one, spotted her lagging behind and smirked. "Pick it up, Collins. You want to knit blankets for the enemy?" Laughter erupted from nearby recruits. She didn't reply. She slid beneath a pipe, dirt smearing her face, fingers gripping the earth with mechanical steadiness. At the climbing wall, Jenkins reached the top first. He looked down, jeering. "You're gonna need a ladder, quiet girl." Emma didn't look up. She jumped, caught the lowest grip, and began ascending. Her movements were smooth, efficient. She didn't waste an ounce of strength. When she reached the top, Jenkins was still catching his breath. She climbed down without a word, leaving him staring after her, insult dying on his tongue. By the time the drill ended, she finished in the middle of the pack, not remarkable, not weak. But while the others gasped and collapsed, she stood, breathing evenly. Sergeant Davis took note again, saying nothing. That evening, the ridicule continued. In the barracks, Jenkins and two others began their favorite pastime, testing her patience. "You don't talk much, do you?" Jenkins said, tossing a ball of socks at her bunk. "You mute or just too good for the rest of us?" Emma ignored him, polishing her rifle in silence. "Hey, we're talking to you," another added, stepping closer. "What's the matter, scared?" The ball hit her shoulder this time. She looked up slowly. Her eyes weren't angry, just cold, distant, unbothered. The same look a surgeon gives a problem before cutting it open. Jenkins hesitated. For a heartbeat, he felt something he hadn't expected, unease. Then Sergeant Davis walked in, killing the noise. "Lights out in 10. If you've got time to run your mouths, you've got time to shine your boots." The recruits scrambled. Emma said nothing. When lights went out, whispers filled the dark. "She's freaking weird. Davis probably favors her. Bet she cracks on deployment." Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The faint hum of the air vent filled the silence. In her mind, she heard the rhythmic click of her father's rifle being loaded, the same sound that had marked her childhood. He used to clean his weapon at the kitchen table, teaching her discipline through repetition. "Every bullet's a promise, Em," he'd said once. "You only fire when you mean it." The next morning began with weapons assembly drills. Davis laid several rifles on a long table. "Blindfold test," he announced. "Fastest one gets weekend liberty. Slowest one gets kitchen duty." The recruits groaned. Jenkins grinned. Finally something fun. Blindfolds went on. Metal clattered as hands fumbled with bolts and barrels. Sweat beaded on foreheads. Emma's movements, though unseen, were smooth and precise. Each part clicked together with rhythmic certainty, like piano keys in perfect tune. 12 seconds later, she lowered her hands. "Done, Sergeant." Davis stopped his stopwatch, disbelief flickering across his face. 12 seconds? He walked over, checked the rifle. Fully assembled, bolt locked, safety engaged. Perfect. "Where'd you learn that, Collins?" "Home, sir," she said softly. The others yanked off their blindfolds, staring. Jenkins looked furious. "No way she did that right." "Quiet," Davis snapped. "You could learn something from her." After the drill, the whispers changed. Some recruits were curious now, not mocking. But Jenkins wasn't ready to give up his pride. He cornered her later, outside the mess hall. "All right, ghost girl," he said, blocking her path. "You trying to show me up?" Emma met his eyes. "You did that yourself." He took a step closer. "You think you're special because of your daddy's name?" That word froze her daddy. Her voice turned colder. "You don't know anything about him." Jenkins sneered. "Everyone knows. Big hero, right?" Guess the apple fell far from the eye. Before he could finish, Sergeant Davis's voice cracked like thunder. "Jenkins!" "My office, now." He stormed off, leaving Emma alone. She exhaled slowly. For the first time since arriving, anger trembled beneath her calm. She didn't hate Jenkins, she pitied him. People like him screamed, because silence scared them. That night, Davis found her in the shooting range after hours. The fluorescent lights flickered. She stood alone, helmet off, firing single rounds downrange, precise, measured, almost musical. He watched quietly until she finished. "You don't miss," he said. She unloaded her rifle, locking it open. "I can't afford to." Davis stepped closer. "That man you lost, Colonel Collins, he'd be proud." Her jaw tightened. "He'd tell me I'm wasting ammo." Davis chuckled softly. "Maybe, but he'd still be proud." Emma looked down the empty range, voice low. "He died protecting his unit. I just want to understand what made him stay calm when everyone else panicked." "That's not something you can be taught," Davis said. "You either have it, or you don't." She turned, meeting his eyes. "Then I guess I'll find out." In the weeks that followed, her reputation grew quietly. During tactical drills, she began taking small leadership roles, giving short, clear commands when others hesitated. Recruits started listening. Jenkins still muttered under his breath, but even he followed her lead when it mattered. One afternoon, during a live simulation, a smoke grenade malfunctioned and ignited too close to the group. Recruits scattered in panic. Emma dashed forward, grabbed the canister with her gloved hand, and hurled it away before it exploded. The instructors rushed in, shouting orders, but it was over. No one hurt. The squad stared at her, stunned. Jenkins swallowed hard. You could have been burned." Emma wiped soot from her glove. "Better me than someone else." From that day on, no one called her Quiet Girl anymore. That night, sitting under the stars, Davis watched her again from a distance. She sat alone, polishing her rifle, her face calm but eyes haunted. He knew what she was becoming, a soldier who didn't seek glory, only clarity. Someone molded not by pride, but by purpose. And though the squad couldn't yet see it, Davis did. He saw the quiet recruit who would one day command their respect, not through words, but through unshakable resolve. The Carolina sky was dark with storm clouds that morning. Rain had turned the training yard into a swamp of mud and sweat. But the drills didn't stop, not at Fort Bragg. Sergeant Davis's voice cut through the thunder like a blade. "Move." Recruits. The enemy won't wait for sunshine. The squad scrambled through the course, boots sinking into thick sludge. Every step burned. Every breath hurt. But Emma Collins has always moved with quiet precision. She wasn't the fastest, but she never broke form. Her body flowed through the chaos like water. She didn't speak. She didn't shout. She just endured. Halfway through, Jenkins slipped and fell face first into the mud. The recruits laughed until Davis's roar silenced them. "You think this is funny? You're dead if that happens out there." He turned to Emma. "Collins, get him moving." She reached down, offered a hand. Jenkins slapped it away. "I don't need help," he snapped, pushing himself up. Emma stepped back, eyes calm. "Then prove it," she said simply, and kept moving. That stung worse than an insult. Jenkins scrambled after her, anger fueling every step. By the end of the course, rain poured hard enough to blur vision. The recruits collapsed under the shelter, gasping for air. Emma stood apart, helmet tucked under her arm, breathing steady. Mud streaked her uniform, but her eyes were clear, cold, focused, alive. Davis watched her from under his cap. He'd seen hundreds of soldiers, but there was something different about this one. She didn't need adrenaline to function. She didn't rely on pride. She ran on something deeper, something controlled. That control would soon be tested. The next morning, training shifted to live-fire combat drills, the first time recruits would fire real ammunition under simulated combat stress. The range echoed with sharp bursts of gunfire and shouted commands. Safety officers moved like shadows, monitoring every movement. "Stay alert," Davis barked. "This is where recruits become soldiers or casualties." Emma lay prone behind her rifle, eyes fixed through the scope. The target silhouettes were scattered across the valley, partially obscured by smoke. Her breathing slowed. One heartbeat. One squeeze of the trigger. Crack. Target down. She shifted slightly. Another target, moving this time. She led her aim by an inch. Crack. Another hit. While others fired wildly, Emma's shots were deliberate, each one perfectly timed. Davis checked the score sheet. 10 shots, 10 hits, he muttered, and louder. Collins, front and center. She jogged forward, boots splashing. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" She hesitated. "My father, sir." "Colonel Collins," he said quietly. "Right?" She nodded. Davis studied her face. No arrogance, no pride, just quiet determination. "He'd be proud," he said. Emma didn't smile. "He'd tell me I'm wasting ammo, sir." The squad chuckled lightly, but Davis saw the flicker of emotion behind her words, the ache she buried under discipline. Later that day, during weapons maintenance, a scream pierced the air. One of the recruits, Private Sanders, had panicked during a cleaning drill. His rifle jammed, and a live round was stuck in the chamber. "Everyone back!" An instructor shouted. The recruits stumbled away in alarm. Sanders froze, hands trembling over the smoking barrel. "It's stuck! It's stuck!" The sergeant was about to call for the range officer when Emma stepped forward. "Private, don't move," she said calmly. She crouched beside him, her movements slow and deliberate. The rifle was hot. The smell of gunpowder and oil filled the air. With gloved hands, she tilted the weapon, pressing the release lever gently. Her eyes followed every mechanism, patient, precise. One click, and another, the round ejected harmlessly. She locked the safety, handed the rifle to the instructor, and stood. "No harm done," she said quietly. For a moment, no one spoke. Even Sergeant Davis, usually a storm of commands, just stared. Then he exhaled. "Good work, Collins." The recruits broke into murmurs. Jenkins, who had been standing nearby, muttered under his breath, "She just got lucky." But deep down, he knew it wasn't luck. She'd saved Sanders from serious injury, maybe worse. That evening, in the mess hall, the whispers about her changed tone. She's the real deal. Did you see how she handled that rifle? Like she's done it 100 times. Emma ignored them all. She sat alone at the corner table, eating quietly. Jenkins walked in, still stewing, his pride bleeding from every word he didn't say. He dropped his tray across from her. You think you're better than us, don't you? She looked up. No, I think I've seen what happens when you're not ready. He leaned closer. You mean your old man? Emma's jaw tightened. She stood, tray in hand. You don't talk about him. Or what? Jenkins sneered. You gonna shoot me like one of your targets? Before she could respond, Davis's voice boomed from behind. Jenkins, outside. Now, the cafeteria went silent. Jenkins cursed under his breath but obeyed. Davis gave Emma a look, half warning, half understanding, and followed him out. Outside, rain drizzled again. Davis stood face to face with Jenkins. You got a problem with Collins? She walks around like she's already a soldier, Jenkins snapped. We're supposed to be a team, but she acts like she doesn't need anyone. Davis's tone dropped lower. You ever think she acts like that because she's already seen more than you ever will? Jenkins blinked, taken aback. Word of advice, Private, Davis continued. Watch her. Don't mock her. You might learn something. Jenkins didn't reply. 2 nights later, a thunderstorm rolled in. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the barracks in flashes of blue-white light. Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The sound of rain against the windows reminded her of the night she received the letter, the one with the military seal. She'd sat on the porch for hours, holding the envelope but unable to open it. When she finally did, the words blurred through tears. We regret to inform you. Her father had been listed as missing in action, presumed dead. No body, no answers. Just a folded flag. That memory followed her into every dream, every drill, every breath she took in uniform. It wasn't grief that drove her now. It was unfinished business. The next morning, the unit was tested in a new exercise, combat coordination under fire. The recruits would engage moving targets while communicating over radio under simulated stress. Davis wanted to see how they handled chaos. The drill began smooth. Then one recruit's radio failed. Orders mixed. The squad turned in the wrong direction, crossing into another unit's fire line. Shots thundered from both sides. Hold fire. Davis shouted, but it was too late. Panic spread. Emma saw it unfold in seconds. Without hesitation, she sprinted forward, waving her arm. Left flank, you're crossing lines. She dropped beside the confused shooter, yanked his rifle down, and redirected his aim. Eyes forward, soldier. We're not the enemy. The recruits froze, shocked by her command presence. When the drill ended, Davis stormed over, furious, but not at her. Who authorized that movement? He barked. No one answered. If this was real, half of you would be dead. He turned to Emma. You kept your head when everyone else lost theirs. She simply nodded. Someone had to, sir. Later, in his report, Davis wrote one line under her name. Exhibits exceptional calm under pressure. Natural leadership potential. That night, while others celebrated finishing the week's drills, Emma sat outside under the canopy, watching the storm clouds drift west. Jenkins approached slowly, holding 2 cups of coffee. He placed one beside her. For what it's worth, he said awkwardly. You saved my ass out there. She smirked faintly. You're welcome. A pause. Then Jenkins added, I still don't get you. Emma stared into the dark horizon. You don't have to. He frowned. Then why do you do it? The training, the silence, the control? Her voice softened. Because one day, it won't be a drill. And when that day comes, someone has to be ready. Jenkins looked at her for a long time, then nodded quietly. He didn't tease her again after that. As lightning flickered in the distance, Emma closed her eyes for a moment. The thunder rolled like the sound of distant gunfire, a reminder of what awaited beyond training. The others were learning how to become soldiers. Emma was remembering how to survive. The sun had barely risen over Fort Bragg when Sergeant Davis called the recruits to formation. His voice carried across the training yard, firm, commanding, urgent. Listen up. Orders just came through. Bravo Company has been activated for live deployment. Not simulation, real combat. The air shifted instantly. Conversations died. Even the wind seemed to stop. Emma's eyes narrowed. Her pulse quickened, but her face remained still. Jenkins whispered, "You mean us?" "We're still in training." Davis's gaze cut across the ranks. "Not all of you. Only those cleared for advanced field readiness." He unfolded a paper, its edges flapping in the breeze. "If your name's called, pack your gear. Wheels up in 2 hours." He began reading the list. Each name drew gasps or sighs of relief. Sanders, Morales, Jenkins. He paused. Collins. Emma's jaw clenched, but she nodded once. Jenkins muttered under his breath, "Unbelievable. The quiet one's going to war." Within the hour, the chosen recruits gathered at the hangar. The massive C-17 transport plane loomed before them, its engines whining low like a sleeping beast ready to awaken. Inside, rows of seats and cargo crates lined the space. The squad strapped in, rifles secured, helmets fastened. The mood was heavy, excitement tangled with dread. Davis paced the aisle, voice calm but cold. "You're headed to Kunar Province. Mountain terrain. Insurgent activity has spiked. Your mission, support an engineering unit under ambush and help extract them. This isn't theory anymore. It's life and death." The engines roared. The ramp lifted. As the plane rumbled down the runway, Emma's thoughts drifted, not to fear, but to memory. She could still hear her father's voice in her mind. Battle isn't about rage. It's about rhythm. Keep your rhythm, and you'll survive. She pressed her hand against her dog tags. The metal felt cold, grounding her. Hours later, they landed at Bagram Airfield. Heat waves shimmered off the tarmac. Helicopters thundered overhead, and soldiers moved with purpose, shouting over the noise. The new recruits were led into briefing tents, where a grizzled captain, Callahan, stood before a digital map. His eyes were sharp, his tone blunt. "Welcome to reality, soldiers. The engineers you're rescuing got pinned by mortar fire along a valley route near Marawara. The terrain's brutal, cliffs fog, no easy exits. You'll be inserted by helo. Hold position until the convoy is extracted. Any questions?" One recruit raised a hand. "Sir, how heavy's the enemy resistance?" Callahan didn't blink. Heavy enough that their last radio call ended mid-sentence. A murmur rippled through the room. Emma didn't flinch. She was already running calculations in her head. Terrain angles, wind direction, movement timing. Every part of her brain shifted into survival focus. Callahan's eyes met hers briefly. He noticed something there, not fear, but readiness. By dusk, the squad loaded into 2 Black Hawk helicopters, rotors screaming against the setting sun. The golden light painted the valley below in shades of blood and bronze. As they flew over the jagged mountain ridges, Davis leaned toward Emma, shouting over the noise. "Collins, ever been under fire?" She shook her head. "Keep that calm of yours. You'll need it." Her reply was simple. "Yes, sir." The pilots' voices crackled over the headset. 2 minutes to drop zone. The soldiers tightened their straps, checked their rifles, and locked eyes. This was it. The helicopters descended fast, blades chopping through mountain air. Dust exploded below as they landed in a shallow ravine. Go, go, go. Emma hit the ground first, scanning the ridgelines through her scope. Nothing but fog, eerie, silent. Then a sharp crack split the air. A sniper round slammed into a nearby rock, spraying shards. Contact! North Ridge. Someone shouted. Chaos erupted. The recruits dove for cover behind boulders as bullets whipped through the mist. Jenkins fumbled with his rifle, cursing. Davis shouted orders. Return fire. Suppress and move. Emma crawled to higher ground, her breath steady despite the gunfire. Through her scope, she spotted the faint shimmer of a rifle barrel glinting between rocks. She didn't hesitate. Crack. The glint disappeared. The enemy fire paused for 3 long seconds, just enough for the team to advance. Nice shot, Jenkins yelled, crawling beside her. Stay low, she said. There's more. For the next 30 minutes, they traded fire across the ravine. The squad moved with increasing coordination, learning to flow under Davis's commands, but the enemy was relentless. Suddenly, over the comms, a panicked voice. This is Engineering Unit Bravo. We're boxed in, 2 clicks east of your position. Davis turned to Emma. You've got the best eyes, Collins. Lead the route. We move now. They sprinted through mud and brush, bullets snapping overhead. The mountain paths twisted like veins. One wrong turn could mean death. Emma halted abruptly at a fork in the trail. Her gut screamed one way. The map said another. She looked up, saw faint smoke drifting through the fog. This way, she said firmly. Are you sure? Jenkins asked. Yes, trust me. They followed her lead. Minutes later, they reached a ridge overlooking the engineer convoy. 3 armored trucks disabled, 1 burning. Soldiers huddled behind shattered metal, exchanging fire with insurgents across the valley. Move in, lay suppressing fire. Davis commanded. The squad opened up, their rifles roaring. The engineers spotted them and cheered, waving signals. Emma dropped beside one of the wounded. Blood soaked his arm. You're going to be fine, she said, applying pressure as she yelled for a medic. Incoming rounds peppered the dirt inches from her boots, but she didn't flinch. As the medevac choppers arrived, the enemy launched their last desperate counterattack, a wave of gunfire from the cliffs. One of the recruits froze in panic. His rifle jammed. Emma saw it happen, the hesitation, the terror in his eyes. She dove across open ground, grabbed his weapon, cleared the jam, and shoved it back into his hands. Focus! She shouted. You're still alive. Fight like it. He snapped out of it, started firing again. Then a deafening explosion rocked the valley. A mortar round landed just 10 meters away. The shockwave slammed Emma into the dirt. Her ears rang, vision blurring. Through the haze, she saw Jenkins shouting, dragging another soldier to cover. Davis's voice roared distant commands, distorted, muffled. She blinked hard, forcing her senses to focus. The smoke thinned enough for her to see, the enemy retreating into the mountains, finally broken. When the last shot faded, the silence was deafening. The engineers were safe. The squad, bruised, bloodied, but alive. Davis walked toward Emma, his uniform torn, helmet dented. You disobeyed the map, he said flatly. She straightened, ready for reprimand. Yes, sir. He stared for a moment, then cracked a rare smile. Good thing you did. You saved 12 men. Jenkins limped over, grinning weakly. Remind me never to doubt you again. Emma exhaled, exhausted but composed. Just keep your head next time. He chuckled. Yes, ma'am. That night, as they flew back to base, the cabin was quiet. The adrenaline had faded, replaced by silent reflection. The moonlight filtered through the portholes, painting pale streaks across their faces. Emma sat alone near the rear, helmet in her lap. Her hands trembled now, the calm she'd held for hours finally cracking. She stared at the faint smear of blood on her sleeve, someone else's, not hers. Davis sat beside her. You held it together out there, he said. She looked straight ahead. I didn't feel anything. That's how survival starts, he replied. But don't let it end that way. Emma didn't answer. Her eyes drifted toward the darkness outside, the mountains fading beneath the clouds. She had survived her first battle, but something inside her had shifted forever. The valley lay ahead like a trap waiting to spring. Fog curled between jagged rocks, masking every ridge and ledge. Emma Collins led the squad cautiously, each step measured, boots sinking into mud, rifles tight against their shoulders. The sun was a pale glow behind thick clouds, the perfect cover for a deadly ambush. Eyes sharp, Davis murmured, his voice barely audible over the wind. We've got movement on the northern ridgeline. The squad froze, scanning. A faint glint reflected off a sniper scope, too late to hide. Emma's eyes tracked every shadow, every flicker, every twitch. 2 o'clock. Sniper, she shouted. Bullets cracked the air, striking rocks inches from their heads. The squad dove behind boulders. Jenkins dropped flat, heart racing, while Sanders muttered frantic prayers. Emma stayed low, scanning. She counted angles, gauged distances, measured wind velocity. Suppress fire. Cover the rear. She ordered, pointing. Her voice was calm, precise, the command of someone who had rehearsed this in her mind 1,000 times. The recruits obeyed, hesitation fading under her control. Their bullets bought seconds, enough for Davis to signal movement. Emma crawled to higher ground, assessing the enemy positions. Smoke and dust filled the air, making visibility almost zero. Still, she spotted them. Insurgents, crouched behind rocks, rifles ready, eyes trained on the squad below. Move, left flank, she shouted. Use the ridge. Jenkins glanced at her. Are you sure? Yes, now. He hesitated, then scrambled after her. Sanders followed, trembling but obeying. Emma's mind calculated paths and angles. Every step could mean death. Suddenly, a sniper round hit a boulder near Emma's foot, spraying dirt across her boots. She didn't flinch. Instead, she pivoted, aimed, and fired in one smooth motion. The sniper's scope glinted again, then disappeared. Nice shot, Jenkins yelled, crawling beside her. Focus, she said. There's more. Minutes dragged into an eternity. The insurgents were relentless, firing from multiple angles, repositioning constantly. Emma guided her squad with sharp, efficient commands. She didn't panic. She didn't hesitate. Every movement was deliberate, every order calculated to save her team. At one point, Sanders froze, rifle jammed, eyes wide. Bullets ricocheted near his head. Emma dove across open ground, yanked his rifle, cleared the jam, and shoved it back into his hands. Focus, you're alive, fight. He nodded, firing again, adrenaline replacing fear. Davis watched from a safer perch. His face was grim, but he couldn't hide the flicker of pride. Emma was changing everything. She wasn't just a recruit anymore. She was their anchor, their guide through chaos. The valley echoed with gunfire, the smell of gunpowder thick in the air. Emma crawled to a wounded soldier, a shallow cut across his shoulder. Blood mixed with mud. She tore her sleeve, applied pressure, all while scanning the ridges for threats. Keep moving. she ordered. We can't stay here. Time blurred. Each second stretched, heartbeat pounding, as the squad inched forward, following her lead. The enemy opened fire again from a higher ridge. Cover! Cover! Someone shouted. Emma assessed their position. They were trapped, a kill zone. Retreating meant exposure. Advancing meant crossing open ground under fire. Then she spotted it, a damaged Humvee abandoned near a rock formation, turret pointing toward the enemy's line. This is our chance. She yelled. Move behind the Humvee. I'll draw their fire. Her squad froze. Are you insane? Jenkins yelled. No time. Follow or die. Emma sprinted first, bullets snapping around her. She mounted the Humvee, firing with controlled bursts, each shot precise. Each aimed to suppress the enemy, not to waste ammunition. Her squad moved under cover, crawling to safety, ducking behind rocks, miraculously unharmed. Every shot she fired bought them a few seconds, then a few more, seconds that felt like hours. Suddenly, the valley erupted with explosions. Mortar fire rained down, shaking the ground, sending dirt and rock flying. Emma kept firing, repositioning herself, calculating trajectories in her mind, heart pounding but body steady. Her rifle cracked again and again, each shot accurate, each hit suppressing the enemy. The insurgents began to retreat, realizing their ambush had failed. Emma's team had survived, against impossible odds. Davis called over the radio. Extraction inbound. Hold position. The squad huddled together, panting, soaked in mud and blood, adrenaline still raging. No one spoke. They just looked at Emma. For the first time, they truly saw her, not the quiet recruit from Fort Bragg, but a soldier forged in fire. Jenkins finally broke the silence. You saved us. Emma didn't answer. She lowered her rifle, scanning the ridges one last time. Stay alert. Don't assume it's over. The helicopters arrived minutes later, whirling into the valley with deafening noise. Emma and her squad loaded the wounded first, covering their retreat. Every step was careful, every motion deliberate. As the chopper lifted off, she looked down at the valley, silent now except for the distant echoes of explosions. Her body trembled slightly, exhaustion catching up. But she didn't allow herself to fall. Not yet. Davis finally approached her once they landed back at base. You didn't just follow orders. You saved 12 lives today, Collins. She nodded, exhausted but composed. We survived because we worked together. I just guided the path. He studied her. Guided the path, huh? That's exactly what a leader does. Jenkins muttered under his breath. Guess the quiet one's not so quiet anymore. That night, back in the barracks, the squad was silent. Each recruit processed the day's chaos differently. Some shaking, some muttering prayers, some replaying near-death moments. Emma sat quietly on her bunk, cleaning her rifle. The blood and mud of battle had dried, but the weight of it remained. Her thoughts drifted to her father. The echo of his words was loud in her mind. Control your fear, and you control the battle. She had controlled it. But at what cost? Sanders approached quietly. I don't even know what to say. Thank you, Collins. She nodded. Don't thank me. Survive. That's all the thanks that matters. Jenkins, still bruised and bloodied, sat on the bunk across from her. I get it now, he said quietly. Why you're different. Emma didn't smile. She simply stared out the window, watching the mountains fade into the night. The storm had passed, but the echoes of the valley remained. The screams, the gunfire, the weight of lives she'd been responsible for. And for the first time, she felt something stir inside her, not fear, not doubt, but the quiet certainty that the path she had chosen was exactly where she needed to be. She had survived her first real battle, and the valley had survived because she refused to break. The morning sun rose hazy and orange over the forward operating base, but the light did little to ease the tension that lingered like smoke over the mountains. The squad gathered for a briefing in a small, sandbagged tent. Their faces bore the exhaustion and grime of their first engagement in the valley, mud-streaked, bloodied, eyes shadowed with fatigue. Sergeant Davis stood at the front, hands folded over a map. Intelligence reports indicate another insurgent stronghold a few clicks north of your previous engagement. This one's bigger, better armed, and more coordinated. Our engineers are scheduled to return through this area tomorrow, and we need to secure the route. Any mistakes could cost lives. The recruits stiffened. The air felt heavier than the morning sun. Emma Collins listened quietly, absorbing every detail. She didn't speak, didn't flinch. Her hands were folded over her knees, mind calculating paths, angles, elevation, and timing. Every scenario was running like a simulation in her head. Davis continued. You'll deploy pre-dawn, secure key points along the route, and hold until extraction. This is not a drill. Live rounds, live fire, live consequences. Jenkins muttered, barely audible. Why do I feel like we're walking into a trap? Emma's eyes flicked to him. Because we are, she said softly, the first words she had spoken in full command in days. And we'll survive it if we follow the plan. The night before deployment, the squad checked and double-checked their gear. Every rifle cleaned, every magazine counted, every pack adjusted for comfort and speed. The forward base was eerily silent, except for the distant hum of generators and the occasional barked order from sentries. Emma crouched over her rifle, disassembling and reassembling it with practiced precision. Her fingers were steady, almost mechanical, yet her mind was alive with anticipation. Every sound, the scrape of metal, the distant murmur of footsteps, the low hum of helicopters overhead, was catalogued, stored, and assessed. Jenkins approached hesitantly. You ever sleep? She looked up briefly, expression unreadable. Sleep is for when the enemy isn't awake. He frowned. That's kind of terrifying. Emma smirked faintly. Better terrifying than dead. Pre-dawn, the squad boarded the helicopters once more. The air was thick with mist, and the valley below was obscured by fog, giving the terrain a ghostly, surreal appearance. The rotor's thunder drowned out everything except the pounding of hearts. As the choppers descended, Emma's mind ran through every contingency. Every ridge, every rock, every potential sniper position. Her calm was unnatural to the others, almost disconcerting. Yet it was infectious. The squad moved with a newfound coordination, following her silent guidance. The landing zone was narrow, surrounded by high cliffs and dense scrub. The instant their boots hit the ground, insurgents opened fire from concealed positions. Bullets ricocheted off rocks, sending shards of stone into the air. Return fire. Move to cover. Davis shouted. Emma dove for the nearest boulder, scanning the ridges. The insurgents were better prepared this time, coordinated, disciplined, and deadly. She quickly identified their firing positions. Left flank, 30 meters ahead. She called out, suppressing fire now. The squad obeyed, their movements sharper, more confident than before. Jenkins fired in rhythm, Sanders held his ground, and the others followed orders with fewer mistakes. Emma moved fluidly, firing when needed, directing their attention, and constantly reassessing the terrain. Suddenly, a volley of mortar rounds landed nearby. The earth shook violently. Emma's ears rang, dust and debris coating her vision. Soldiers cried out, some tumbling to the ground. Davis bellowed over the chaos. Form a perimeter. Protect the wounded. Emma scanned the smoke-filled valley. One of the recruits, Private Morales, was pinned behind a fallen log, screaming. Bullets kicked up dirt around him. Emma sprinted across open ground without hesitation, the enemy focusing fire on her position. She reached Morales, dragged him to cover, and handed him her helmet. Stay low. Cover the wounded. Morales nodded, terrified, but followed her command. Emma rose slightly, crouching just enough to return fire. Her shots were precise, each suppressing enemy fire and buying seconds for her squad to regroup. Flank the ridge. Now, she yelled. The squad moved under her direction, creeping along rocks and scrub. They encountered heavy resistance, but Emma's strategy worked. Slow, deliberate, coordinated movement. Minutes later, they reached a narrow ridge. From this vantage point, they could see the enemy fortifications, firing positions, sandbags, and makeshift watchtowers. It was a trap, carefully prepared to ambush any advancing unit. Emma crouched, eyes scanning. We need to neutralize their observation posts before moving further, she said, calculating angles and distances. Jenkins hesitated. Are you sure we can do this without getting mowed down? Trust me, Emma replied. She moved first, crouching behind a boulder, aiming carefully. One precise shot took out a sniper nest. Another suppressed a machine gun position. She kept moving, covering fire, directing squad members with hand signals and sharp commands. The insurgents started realizing they were being outmaneuvered. Confusion spread among their ranks. Emma's squad advanced with precision, slow, methodical, deadly. Suddenly, a larger explosion rocked the ridge. One of the insurgents had planted a small explosive. Debris and dust filled the air. Jenkins tumbled backward, blood streaming down his arm. Emma reacted instantly, dragging him to cover and applying field dressing. Hold on, she said, her voice calm despite the chaos. You'll make it. The squad regrouped, with Davis surveying the battlefield. Collins, you've got this under control, he said, awe creeping into his tone. Emma didn't reply. Her eyes scanned the valley, noting remaining threats, adjusting angles of fire, and directing her squad. Every movement was intentional, every shot calculated. Hours passed like minutes. The insurgents tried multiple counterattacks, but Emma anticipated them all. Her calm, precise leadership turned a desperate situation into a controlled engagement. The squad survived without a single fatality, a feat no one had expected. As the extraction choppers arrived, the squad retreated under covering fire. Emma stayed back briefly, ensuring no soldier was left behind, then sprinted toward the aircraft. The rotors kicked up mud and debris, whipping against her uniform, but she didn't falter. When the last soldier boarded safely, Davis approached her. Collins, I don't think I've ever seen someone lead like that. You kept everyone alive under impossible conditions. She exhaled, exhausted. We survived because we worked together, sir. Jenkins muttered. We survived because she refused to panic. Emma didn't respond. She simply stared out the open ramp at the valley below, silent, still, and deadly beautiful in its chaos. That night, back at the base, the squad was quiet. Some meditated, some wrote letters home, some simply stared at nothing. Emma sat alone, cleaning her rifle by dim lamplight. Her hands shook slightly, exhaustion finally breaking through her calm exterior. Davis approached quietly. You've changed the squad, he said. You've made them better soldiers. Emma shook her head. I didn't change them. They just needed someone to show them they could survive. Davis studied her. You've got the makings of a leader. Not just anyone survives what you just survived, and comes back calm enough to teach others. She didn't answer. Her mind replayed every shot, every command, every narrow escape. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel the weight of responsibility, the lives she had guided, saved, and protected. Outside the tent, the mountains were silent. The storm of the day had passed, but the valley remained etched in memory, a reminder that the line between survival and death was razor thin. Emma closed her eyes for a moment. Tomorrow, the mission might escalate again. But for tonight, she allowed herself the smallest moment of calm, knowing that she had survived the turning point and that her squad had survived because she refused to break. The early morning sky was painted with streaks of orange and gray, and the chill in the air made the soldier's breath visible in the thin mountain air. Emma Collins stood at the edge of the cliffside path, scanning the valley below. The squad had received intelligence that the insurgents had regrouped, more numerous than before, and had blocked the main extraction route. Sergeant Davis gathered them briefly. Command wants the engineers evacuated by 0600, but satellite images show multiple ambush points along the route. Your job is to secure the path, hold the valley, and report back. Standard procedure. No deviation. Emma's eyes narrowed. Something about the intel didn't add up. She studied the map, the terrain, and the positions of enemy activity. Every instinct screamed that if they followed the standard route, they'd walk directly into a trap. She said nothing at first, letting the squad absorb Davis's instructions. When the briefing ended, they loaded into their Humvees, engines rumbling, tires crunching gravel. Emma sat silently, scanning every ridge, every shadow, noting likely enemy firing positions. Jenkins leaned over, whispering, "You think we should go off the plan?" Emma didn't respond immediately. Her mind ran calculations: elevation, cover, line of sight, response times. Then she said quietly, "We have to. The standard route will get us killed." Jenkins blinked. "Are you sure?" "Trust me," she said, calm but firm. The convoy moved along the valley road, dust rising behind them. Emma's instincts proved right. Just beyond the bend, debris and destroyed vehicles littered the path. Insurgent forces had planted multiple mines and were positioned on both sides of the valley, waiting. "Contact!" Someone shouted. Bullets tore through the air, ricocheting off metal and rock. The squad dove for cover, engines of the Humvees sputtering to a halt. Insurgents opened fire from elevated positions, raining death down upon them. The soldiers were pinned, exposed, and vulnerable. Davis's voice came over the comms, calm but commanding. "Hold your position. Suppress and return fire." Emma assessed the situation. The main route was a death trap. If they moved forward, they'd be cut off. Retreat wasn't an option. Insurgents would swarm. There was only one alternative: take the path less visible, steep cliffs on the right side, nearly impossible terrain, but the only chance to outmaneuver the enemy. Her jaw tightened. "We're going over the cliffs," she said firmly. "Over the cliffs?" Jenkins asked incredulously. "You're insane." "Insane is staying on that road," Emma replied. Davis, monitoring from a distance, realized what she was about to do. The rules were clear. Follow standard procedure. Wait for extraction. But watching the squad pinned and lives at stake, he knew Emma's instincts were right. He hesitated, then gave a curt nod. "Do what you have to, Collins." Emma led the squad to the cliffside, scouting footholds and ledges. The rock was slick from overnight rain, loose in spots, and sharp edges threatened to tear uniforms and hands. Every step was calculated, slow, deliberate. She tested each hold before committing her weight. The squad followed, murmuring under their breath, nervous and terrified. Jenkins slipped once, clawing at the rock for balance. Emma grabbed his hand instinctively. Focus, she said. One step at a time. The insurgents noticed their movement, but the cliff path was narrow and concealed. Bullets ricocheted off the rock behind them, harmless but terrifying. Emma's calm guided them, her voice measured, every command designed to coordinate movement and maintain composure. Hours seemed to pass. The squad inched along, exhaustion setting in. Rain began to fall, making the rocks slicker, the path more dangerous. But Emma didn't slow, didn't flinch. She calculated angles, wind, and the trajectory of any stray bullets. At one point, they came to a ledge overlooking a heavily fortified insurgent position. The engineers were trapped below, unable to move, pinned by enemy fire. Emma knelt, surveying the target positions through her scope. She could take the shots herself, or coordinate the squad to provide covering fire while the engineers moved to safety. She chose both. Emma divided the squad into teams. 2 on suppressing fire. Keep them down. 1 with me will guide the engineers along the ridge. Jenkins, still shaking, asked, "What if we get cut off?" "Then we fight," she said, voice steady. "But we won't get cut off. Trust your positions." The first shots rang out. Emma fired precise bursts, each hitting targets that were obstructing the engineers' movement. The insurgents returned fire, but the suppression was effective. The engineers began crawling toward cover, guided by the squad's sharpshooters and Emma's sharp instructions. An explosion ripped through the area. One of the insurgent positions fired a rocket. The squad dove, dust and debris flying. 1 soldier was thrown against a rock, scraping his side. Emma scrambled, pulling him up, checking his injuries in seconds. "Keep moving. Cover them," she shouted. The squad's nerves were frayed, but Emma's calm focus kept them functioning as a unit. Every shot, every command, every movement was intentional. She had become the pivot around which their survival turned. Halfway along the ridge, they encountered another ambush point. Insurgents had hidden in narrow caves, firing down the cliffside. Emma realized they couldn't advance without risking lives. Her mind raced. Standard orders would have them wait for reinforcements. But Emma knew reinforcements wouldn't arrive in time. They were the only solution. She made a split-second decision. "I'm going first. Cover me." Without hesitation, she sprinted across open rock, bullets striking around her. Her heart pounded, but her movements were precise, every muscle coordinated. She reached the first insurgent cave, lobbed a smoke grenade, and moved quickly, disorienting the enemy. The squad followed her lead, firing from concealed positions. Within moments, the ambush point was neutralized. The engineers, exhausted and terrified, scrambled past them to safety. Davis radioed in, voice tense but calm. "Collins, status?" "Engineers moving to extraction," she replied. Squad holding position for cover. The insurgents, now disoriented, attempted one last counterattack. Emma spotted a machine gun nest about 50 meters away, ready to open fire. She calculated the trajectory, distance, and wind. 1 shot, perfect, and the threat was neutralized. The valley fell silent. The squad regrouped, muddy, bloodied, and exhausted. Emma scanned the horizon. No immediate threats. The extraction helicopters arrived, lifting the engineers first, then the squad. As they rose, she finally allowed herself a moment to exhale. Jenkins, sitting beside her, whispered, I don't know how you do it." Emma glanced at him, expression calm but distant. "Focus, train, trust your instincts, and never stop moving when others freeze." Davis approached her quietly once they landed back at base. "You broke orders today, Collins. But you saved lives. I can't fault you." Emma nodded, fatigue creeping in. We survived because we adapted, sir. That's what soldiers do. The weight of the day hit her finally. Her body trembled, adrenaline fading. She looked at the squad, all alive, all looking at her with a mix of awe and gratitude. For the first time, she allowed herself a small smile. She had passed the ultimate test, not just by surviving herself, but by ensuring that everyone under her command survived. And though the valley would haunt her in memory, the screams, the smoke, the near misses, she knew she had proven something deeper, that courage, precision, and calm could save lives even against impossible odds. The base was unusually quiet the morning after the valley operation. The soldiers moved with subdued exhaustion, boots dragging through mud, uniforms stained with dried blood and grime. The adrenaline that had fueled them yesterday was gone, replaced by the heavy weight of fatigue, relief, and lingering tension. Emma Collins walked among the squad silently, her rifle slung over her shoulder, boots crunching gravel. She had kept them alive, 12 soldiers, engineers, and herself, through the most harrowing operation of their careers so far. And yet, she didn't allow herself a moment of pride. Her focus remained razor-sharp, scanning every ridge, every movement, every potential threat. Jenkins approached hesitantly, still sporting a bandage across his forearm. "Collins?" he began, voice low. "I don't think anyone's ever. I don't know how you stayed so calm." Emma shook her head. "I wasn't calm. I was thinking. That's all." He frowned. "Thinking while bullets are flying at your face?" She offered a small, faint smile. "Someone has to. You can't lead in panic. You can only survive if you control what you can." The squad gathered later that morning for debriefing. Sergeant Davis stood at the front, papers rustling in his hands, but his gaze kept returning to Emma. When he finally spoke, the room went silent. Yesterday, this squad faced what would have been a death trap for most units. Every standard protocol we had would have resulted in multiple casualties. Every hesitation, every error could have been fatal. He paused, letting his words sink in. But thanks to one individual, everyone survived. Lives were saved because of her quick thinking, courage, and leadership under extreme stress. The soldiers exchanged glances. Some whispered, others nodded. Even Jenkins, who had been vocal about his doubts, stood quietly, eyes locked on Emma. Davis continued, "Emma Collins, your actions went above and beyond the call of duty. You took initiative, adapted under fire, and ensured the survival of this squad and the engineers. Effective immediately, you are recommended for a commendation. But more importantly," he stepped closer, voice lowering but filled with weight, "you earned the respect of every soldier in this unit." A quiet murmur of approval swept through the room. Soldiers who had doubted her before now looked at her with admiration and trust. After the debriefing, Emma returned to her bunk. She unpacked her rifle, methodically cleaning each piece, every movement deliberate and precise. The physical exhaustion of the past 48 hours was catching up, but it wasn't just her body that felt heavy. Her mind was replaying every moment of the operation. She remembered the insurgents' sniper positions, the mortar blasts, the panic of the recruits, and the terrified engineers. She remembered Jenkins' fall on the cliffside and how she had caught him just in time. She remembered Sanders' frozen expression during the firefight and how her instinct had saved him. And most of all, she remembered the split-second decisions, the moments where hesitation could have meant death. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Sergeant Davis, standing quietly in the doorway. "You okay?" he asked. Emma nodded, but didn't look up. "I'm fine, just processing." Davis stepped inside, his presence calm but firm. "Processing is important. What you did. what you've done for this squad. It's not just tactical skill. It's leadership. And it's rare. People like you, they don't come around often. Emma finally met his eyes. I didn't do it alone. The squad followed. They survived too. Yes, he said, nodding. But someone had to guide them. Someone had to make the hard calls. And you did. That's what leaders do. The next day, the base commander called a formal assembly. Soldiers lined the parade ground, the hum of helicopters and distant gunfire, a constant reminder of the world they served in. Emma stood in formation, quiet, composed, but alert. Her uniform was still smeared with mud from the valley, metals clinking softly against her chest. Davis stepped forward, saluting. Sir, may I present Sergeant Emma Collins? The commander approached, a tall figure with years of experience etched into his face. Sergeant Collins, he began, voice resonant. Your actions during the Valley operation have saved lives, prevented disaster, and demonstrated exemplary courage and leadership. On behalf of this base, I commend you for your service and bravery. He pinned a medal to her chest, the unit's highest commendation for leadership under fire. Emma stood at attention, but inside, she felt a quiet release, the tension of the past days finally easing. The squad cheered, some with tears in their eyes, some with silent acknowledgement, but all united in respect. Jenkins whispered from the formation beside her, You're not quiet anymore. You're unforgettable. Emma allowed herself a small smile. Just someone doing her job. Later that evening, the squad gathered around a small fire outside the barracks. Smoke curled into the night sky, mingling with the scent of wood, gunpowder, and rain-damp earth. Soldiers laughed quietly, sharing stories, venting fear, and celebrating survival. Emma sat slightly apart, watching them, listening. For the first time, she allowed herself to absorb the full weight of their admiration and gratitude. They weren't just her squad anymore. They were her unit, her team, and she had earned their trust. Sanders approached, bandage on his arm fresh and clean. I just want to say thanks again. You kept me alive, and I'll never forget it. Emma nodded. You survived. That's what matters. Remember it. Jenkins joined her, handing over a canteen. To the quiet recruit who saved all our asses. Emma chuckled softly, the first real laugh in days. I was never quiet, she replied, just waiting for the right moment. As the night deepened, Emma lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling. The events of the past week, the training, the ambushes, the valley, the decisions, the lives saved, played in her mind like a vivid replay. She thought of her father, his words echoing softly. Control your fear. Control the chaos. Lead, and people will follow. She had done exactly that. She had led. And in doing so, she had discovered not only her own strength, but the power to inspire courage in others. Tomorrow, they would train again. They would fight again, and the mountains would demand everything they had. But for now, Emma allowed herself one small, rare moment of peace. She had survived the ultimate test. She had saved her squad, and she had proven first to herself, and then to everyone around her, that courage, calm, and precise action could prevail, even in the face of overwhelming odds. For Emma Collins, the quiet recruit of Fort Bragg, this was only the beginning.